I recently went camping in the cheapest tent I could find on Amazon. Now, since this trip was actually a lot more enjoyable than I was expecting, and you guys seem to enjoy the video, today we are bringing the tent back for a part 2. I am running to Home Depot now to pick up some supplies to get started on a exciting and honestly a little bit ridiculous new project. So for today's project, we are going to be building the cheapest rooftop tent. Now, the name of the game here is going to be trying to keep it cheap. We're at Home Depot. We're gonna try and get the bare minimum for supplies to try and make this possible. The plan is to use some type of plywood like this on the top of my Sherpa rack. So just figuring out which one we can go with here, something thick enough but also cheap. So far we got U-bolts to bolt it to the Sherpa rack. We got I-bolts, these are gonna be to hold the tent in place, and then some of these S-clips to hold the tent down, and then just our 1932nd plywood, which is $30. And the last thing on our list today, we don't really need this, but good, how you doing? So we picked up hopefully everything we need. Shout out to the Sequoia rear window. Successful trip to Home Depot. Let's go start building. It is a couple days later now, and I finally had some time to start working on this project. So today's plan is to get started building the cheapest rooftop tent and just start putting everything together. Since I'm going to be bolting this sheet of plywood to the roof rack just using some U-bolts, my first step is putting it up on the Sherpa rack today and figuring out where I actually want to drill the holes and mount it into the rack. The Sherpa rack honestly fits it almost perfectly. It's just a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and I'm guessing the dimensions on the top of that roof rack are 4 foot by 8 foot. Because the Sherpa rack has all of these kind of cross members, the plan is to use some U-bolts to bolt this sheet of plywood directly to the Sherpa rack. I'm thinking 2 in the front, 2 in the back. And the nice part about this Sherpa rack is that each of the cross members is actually adjustable, meaning you can slide it kind of forward and backwards. So as long as we get the front locked in, we can adjust this back cross member forward or backwards to get it lined up. So we don't actually have to get our measurements absolutely perfect here. We have a little bit of wiggle room once we get our holes drilled. So our next step here is going to be drilling out holes for the U-bolts. We went ahead and marked all of the areas where I want to drill the holes when it was up on the roof rack just a second ago. Now we're going to take the drill those out. That way we can run the U-bolt through the piece of plywood around the cross members of the Sherpa rack and attach this piece of plywood to the Sherpa rack. All right, so I just drilled all of the holes for the U-bolts. You can see right there, and then the U-bolts just slide in, and this will go around the Sherpa rack cross member. So the next step now is to throw this piece of plywood back up on the Sherpa rack and test fit everything and make sure it all bolts up. Here it is, the rooftop tent, all done. Just kidding, we need to add turf and bolt it down. I'm gonna test fit it though. It definitely feels very sturdy, so I love that. All 4 of the U-bolts are currently through the plywood and over the cross member, which means that they all are in place. This means when I go to mount them, and I'm going to mount them from the bottom going up, this is because that's going to be the only or easiest way to tighten those nuts down and secure it into place. But this means that when I flip it over, when I flip the U-bolts over and go run them up through the plywood, they should all line up. So this is the part where we're gonna make it actually look nice, and I think this honestly is going to add a lot for the price. $25 or so for this roll of turf. I think one of the easiest ways to attach fabric of some sort to plywood, a staple gun. This is a tool you can pick up for relatively cheap and makes projects like this a lot easier. On the sides here, I'm going to fold it around and staple on the back to hopefully secure it a little bit better, and then I can trim off some of this excess. Now we are making a rooftop tent here, and while this platform with the turf does look pretty sweet, we still need our tent. If you're new to my channel, I recently went camping in the cheapest tent I could find on Amazon. It was a whole lot of fun. It was a crazy adventure. The tent was, I think I purchased it for $16. So we're actually going to be bringing that $16 tent back and mounting it on the top of this platform here, and that is what's going to make up our rooftop tent. So here it is. It is back. The cheapest tent on Amazon is here for part 2. I'm just gonna go ahead and set up this tent real quick. I think it's gonna make it a little bit easier to figure out where I want to mount and secure it. So the tent is a little bit too wide. It's wider than the platform. It kind of sticks off the end here. So I'm just going to make some kind of plates that extend out where you can secure the tent using some scrap aluminum from my roommate. So let's go cut those pieces now. Alright, so I just made these little aluminum brackets really quick. Nothing pretty, but what they're going to do is they are going to mount and extend on my platform. And they're going to act as little feet where the tent will clip in so that I can hold the tent in place. So alright, so I attached these kind of metal brackets here, and these are going to be to hold the tent in place. I have these kind of S carabiner clips, and those are going to go through the hole and then go around the tent to hold it all in place. And these kind of act as the tent stakes. Mounting this was definitely not very easy. Trying to get the U-bolts to line up underneath and go through these two small holes is just very difficult, but I'm happy to say I got all 4 of them through. So I'm just going to go through and tighten all of these down now and secure our platform here to the Sherpa rack. Since these U-bolts stick up quite a bit, just gonna take a grinder here and chop them down. It's now time to throw in the tent and see how this thing looks. The cheapest rooftop tent is mounted onto the Sequoia. This thing looks actually insane. It looks so funny sitting up there. The Sequoia looks so tall, but this project is pretty much complete. Here behind me is the new cheapest rooftop tent in all of its glory. And I just set it up here to kind of get a first look and make sure everything worked. And I want to give you guys a quick tour before I take it down because I cannot drive with it set up like this. But let's go take a quick look. So the whole tent is mounted to this big 4x8 sheet of plywood. This plywood is attached to my Sherpa rack with the cross members. I just have these U-bolts that I cut down a little bit that are holding it in place. There are 4 of them, 1 on kind of each corner, so 2 in the front, 2 in the rear. This piece of plywood actually fit perfectly up here. I was super happy about that. I wasn't sure what the dimensions of the Sherpa rack were because I did not do any measuring before buying it, which was probably not the smartest, but actually kind of lucked out and it worked out perfectly. So covered it in, let's see, I want to make sure you guys can see here. It is covered in just some turf to give a kind of a nice finished look. I also think it just looks funny that way. Now to secure the tent itself to the platform, what I ended up doing, because the tent was a little bit wider than the platform, which is again 4x8 sheets, so 4 foot wide, I made these little aluminum brackets. They're just bolted to the frame and then they extend out and have a hole, and the tent is just clipped in with these little kind of like S-style carabiner clips. So one goes into the hole on the mount and the other goes to the tent, just normally like right where you would normally stake it down. So that is how the tent is secured. There's one of these in each corner. So the cheapest rooftop tent is now assembled. You can see it here behind me and it looks absolutely wild sitting on the top of the Sequoia. It just looks so funny to see kind of a normal camping tent mounted to the top of a big SUV because I've never seen anything like that before. Does this set up in 5 seconds? Is it waterproof? Can it stay on top of the Sequoia full time? Absolutely not. But what other rooftop tent can you get for only $100? I'm so excited for part 2 in this series, which is going to be actually taking this out and camping in it. I plan to do that here in the next couple of days. So definitely stay tuned for part 2 where I actually go and camp in the cheapest rooftop tent. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this, and I do hope you guys enjoyed this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Your support really does help me out, and I do appreciate it. As always, please feel free to reach out with any comments or questions. You can drop them in the comment section below, or you can send me a message on Instagram, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. So thank you so much. Stay tuned for part 2, and I'll see you guys in the next one.